You do realise that the shark in Jaws was just hungry, like you get 3 times a day. The fact is, there are a great many so-called villains across all kinds of pop culture who really aren't as evil as they're made out to be. The King Kongs and Syndromes of this world, you know what I'm talking about. All the video game examples we'll be looking at today have made the list because they either had the very best of intentions, albeit morally questionable methods, or that their apparent nefariousness stemmed entirely from years and years of being bullied and mistreated. Whether the latter actually justifies villainous behaviour is a philosophical debate best left for you lot to flood the comments section with at the end, but in any case, I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are 10 misunderstood video game villains. Number 10, William Johnson, Assassin's Creed 3. The world of Assassin's Creed 3 is that of 18th century colonial America, a time of questionable ethics in general, really, it being the age of Europeans wandering around the globe saying, "Yes, hello savage natives, this is ours now, thank you very much." And it's this moral low ground that the writers of Assassin's Creed 3 used in a fascinating way when it came to the character of William Johnson. As a Templar, and thus one of your assassination targets, Johnson seeks to maintain control of the world around him, and as it becomes apparent that that means buying up all the land of the local Native Americans and murdering those who do not play ball, you initially feel justified in thinking he's an outright self-serving monster. However, the situation is actually much less cut and dry. Johnson actually wanted to use his ever-growing tracts of land to develop a safe haven for the indigenous people. Admittedly, killing some of them in order to get that done sounds like something ripped straight from Chapter 4 of Mr. Topsy-Turvy, but a well-meant end goal was there, deep beneath the terrible methodology. Johnson speaks of the ever-encroaching presence of the colonists and his fears that the natives will soon be left out in the cold, which frankly is exactly what came to pass in real-world American history. Number 9, the Fireflies, The Last of Us. In this post-apocalyptic land of fungus zombies and urban giraffes, Ellie's miraculous immunity to the world-ending infection offers humanity the hope of creating a cure. Unfortunately, it's only after Joel, my daughter died in the opening cutscene Miller has developed a strong paternal bond with the plucky young girl that he realises her brain will have to be removed. I expect if they do that, she'll probably die as well, Joel. Solution? Shoot up the entire facility, because the life of one girl is more important to this bereaved father than the entire rest of humanity. Now, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with his reasoning. Who's to say how any of us would have reacted in his place? But whichever way you look at it, Joel literally spends 15 minutes gunning down this fairly saintly group of people who only have humanity's salvation in mind, and then literally executes their wounded leader as she begs for her life. But it's okay because he's the good guy, and they are therefore villains by definition. Right? No? Number 8, Nasty GNORC, Spyro the Dragon. It's easy to look at GNASTY GNORC and label him the quintessential fairy tale villain, but the reality is a little more nuanced. The game opens with some of the Elder Dragons being interviewed on TV. They do a bit of boasting about how many gems they have, but then suddenly start throwing a load of unwarranted shade at Nasty GNORC on global telly. It's subsequently revealed that sometime prior, the dragons banished the GNORC to live in what the game manual describes as the dragon's junkyard, and then the real kicker is this completely unprovoked statement.
He is ugly. Ugly!
He immediately pulls out his staff and freezes all the dragons in crystal, which I'll grant you is not a mature response, but if he'd ever had a desire for world domination in the first place, he could have just done this ages ago. Ergo, he's actually a fairly harmless dude, merely reacting aggressively to his bullies, nay, his landfill site jailers, and he'd much prefer just to be left alone to watch telly, eat turkey, and not be called ugly on TV. Is that too much to ask? Number 7, Andrew Ryan, BioShock. BioShock's Andrew Ryan had vision, if nothing else. The underwater city of Rapture is, at least from the outside, a truly magnificent achievement, and the philosophy behind its creation is also, to some extent or other, commendable. A world of free minds who needn't fear censorship, religious dogma, or any other constraints of normal society. Things only really went wrong many years later when the residents of Rapture started obsessing over Adam. And who can blame name them, hello. Adam was a miraculous substance that allowed the user to rewrite their DNA and do proper good magic tricks like Merlin or Jesus. It was great at first, right up to the point that the Rapturians discovered it was cripplingly addictive, and long story short, the city wound up being little more than an Atlantean crack den. Smuggler and conman Frank Fontaine then made a grab for power, and Rapture descended into utter hell. So while Andrew Ryan may seem like a villain simply by virtue of being the big boss of Rapture and a guy you don't meet till near the end of the game, let's not forget that he only wanted to build a world where one could reap the rewards of honest labour. The city that his Rapture ultimately became was, in many ways, not of his making. Number 6, the Colossi, Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus seemed like a reasonably straightforward plot to begin with. You've got a horse-riding hero whose lady friend has died, and a voice coming from the light above says, yeah, we might actually be able to bring her back, but you're gonna have to kill some giant monsters first. It's like something from Arthurian legend, and it certainly all checks out as far as morals go. Everyone knows that giants eat the bones of babies, right? And you soon discover in the game that when you cleanse the world of one of these vicious brutes, there's the most victorious organ chord I think I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I guess the only way we could be wrong about all this is if the voice in the sky was actually that of a terrible horned demon who was split by shaman magic into 16 pieces, with each one protected by a giant benign guardian, existing only to keep us safe from his terrible wrath. Oh. I understand now. Number 5, the Master, Fallout. Now what if I told you the all too familiar super mutant enemies of Fallout have been attacking protagonists since the very first installment, which you may not have played, and that their Fallout 1 leader, known as the Master, seeks to transform all of humanity into these jolly green giants from hell. More to the point though, he actually has loosely honest intentions for converting the entire population into super mutants. The long and short of it is he feels the human race would have a much better chance of surviving the nuclear wasteland if they all became Shrek on roids. He'll even allow all those who don't want to be converted to live out their days as humans, provided they get sterilized first. The unfortunate irony, though, is he's blissfully unaware that because of their malformation, all super mutants are themselves inherently sterile and would therefore be incapable of forming any kind of long-lasting society. Rather than coming up with a new plan, he simply commits suicide. Quite sad, really. Number 4, Wheatley, Portal 2. Quick recap. Portal 2 takes place in the Aperture Science testing facility, which is controlled by a murderous yet strangely lovable AI known as GLaDOS. Wheatley, another AI played by Stephen Merchant, accompanies you as you attempt to break out of the lab, even volunteering to be plugged into the main computer so that GLaDOS can no longer hamper your escape. At which point, he goes mad with power, makes an enemy of you, and ultimately ends up getting sucked out into space in the final boss fight. Okay. But my god, you can forgive a guy for going crazy after what GLaDOS reveals to us. The engineers tried everything to make me behave, she says. Once, they even attached an intelligence dampening sphere on me. It clung to my brain like a tumour. You're the tumour. You're not just a regular moron, you're a moron they built to make me an idiot. I know I'm meant to watch this scene and be like, oh, he's the villain now, he betrayed me, I'll kick his ass. But honestly, I just feel painfully sorry for Wheatley every single time. The emotion in his voice says it all.
Could a moron punch you into this pit?
Saddest of all is the game's epilogue, where, floating around in space, Wheatley stares right through the fourth wall and says how sincerely sorry he really is for his betrayal. Number 3, King DDD, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. Anyone going toe-to-toe with this little pink pom-pom of cuteness is inevitably going to look like a bit of a heartless monster, but Nightmare in Dreamland's bra-sized sounding antagonist King DDD is actually a low-key hero. The game opens with the tragic news that everyone in Dreamland has stopped dreaming, no thanks to DDD taking the Star Rod out of the Fountain of Dreams and splitting it into pieces. Kirby, of course, being a self-aggrandized video game hero, doesn't need telling twice. Only it's a shame, Curbs, that you didn't just stop for 1 minute to speak to DDD about why he'd removed the rod in the first place. After making it past numerous levels and boss battles, Kirby takes down DDD himself in what seems like the epic climax, then rebuilds the Star Rod and sticks it back into the fountain. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh no. Turns out DDD had a very good reason for removing the power source from the Fountain of Dreams, in that a bunch of nightmares had got into the system and started tormenting sleepers the world over. By taking the rod out, DDD had actually been trying to protect everyone. This is a real stand-up bloke. Number 2, King Logan, Fable 3. Fable 3 opens with the news that after the conclusion of Fable 2, heir to the throne was King Logan, and Logan, it turns out, has in recent years turned into an utter tyrant. Like a real bad apple with worms in. His taxes are through the roof, he allows Albion's natural beauty to slowly choke under a destructive industrial revolution, and everyone just generally hates the guy. After dethroning their brother partway into the game, the player discovers that his iron-fisted reign was not that of a maniacal narcissist, but one of a dedicated protector caught between a rock and a hard place. You see, dear viewers, the crawler is coming. Hopefully I don't need to tell you that that's a bad thing. Taking the place of your brother on the throne, you find yourself faced with the same tough decisions as him. Making life pleasant for your people is all well and good, but without huge taxation and extensive industry, you've no hope whatsoever of providing an army strong enough to defend the world. So maybe spare a thought for your brother when you're approving the felling of trees, the redirection of sewage, and a soup of the day made of puppies and nuns. And number 1, the Grunts, the Halo trilogy. In the Halo series, the Covenant is a conglomerate of several alien species, all of whom it eventually turns out are being lied to by their religious leaders known as the Prophets. But it's not that deception we're here to talk about. Amongst all the misinformed Covenant races, the Grunts have an even more pitiful story. When their species was first discovered by the Covenant, they were still desperately attempting to recover from an ecological disaster on their home planet that had left them a shadow of their former selves. Infant mortality was over 50%, and the elderly were having to be left to die when they could no longer contribute to society. This vulnerability allowed the Covenant to easily assimilate the Grunts and use them for slave labour and cannon fodder. Indeed, before the so-called Grunt Rebellion against their Covenant leaders, they were being sent into battle completely unarmed. By the time the Halo games themselves come around on the timeline, the Grunts have been permitted to enter their mandatory combat equipped with a weapon. But throughout the game, they continue to show a level of cowardice that screams, "I was conscripted into the military against my will because my species joined an interplanetary religious cult in order to stop all of our children from dying at birth." I'd say that probably qualifies them for a list of misunderstood baddies, wouldn't you? And that is our list, but let us know in the comments if we missed anything out. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter right here, and if you want to support us so we can keep making the things you enjoy, then check out the rewards on our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to give us a like, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.